Maji Moya Karja. I hope everybody's keeping really well at home. Today in our English lesson we are going to be looking at a poem called First They Came for the Jews by Martin Niemöller. This poem, like all poems we have learned about in the Poetry Project, centralises around the theme of equality, and we're going to be looking at equality in different ethnic groups today. However, this poem is extremely fitting this week, as you can maybe guess from the title, from the word Jews. It revolves around the events which occurred in World War II, being the Holocaust, okay? And as I say, this is very fitting as on Wednesday the 27th of January, so just earlier this week, it was Holocaust Memorial Day, where people from all around the world remember and honour the people who were lost in the Holocaust. So, we are learning today how to analyse poetry tools and how they are used by poets to effectively portray the theme of equality. And our learning intention. So, by the end of today's lesson, we will be able to provide an insight into how poetry tools can help a poet portray the theme of equality. And we will also be able to describe historical scenes of inequality from photographs. So we're going to be looking at photographs and we're going to be analysing them, okay? My Shiv. So here's some context and information about the poet Martin Niemöller. He was born in Germany in 1893. He lived through the horrific events of the Holocaust. He was an extremely religious man and he opposed the Nazi resistance to religion and church. Niemöller was captured and sentenced to 7 years in concentration camps. Unlike many millions, he survived the camps, and he went on to write possibly the most famous Holocaust poem of all time, which of course is the poem we are going to look at today. So this slide just contains some background information on the Holocaust, okay? And if you look at the two pictures I've included, The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas, originally a book and then made into quite a famous film, and Anne Frank's diary. I'm sure everybody has heard of either one of these two, okay? So although not a very pleasant time in history, it is most certainly a very popular time in history for historians looking back, and it has inspired many works of literature and many films and stuff today. So even if you haven't specifically learnt about it in history class, I'm sure you have read or seen about it in a book, TV show or a film, okay? So what was the Holocaust? I'm sure you know this, but just as a recap so we understand the context of the poem. It was a horrific event which took place during World War II, spanning the years of 1939 to 1945. During the Holocaust, a huge loss of life occurred at the hands of the Nazis. The Jews were the people who suffered the most. However, other ethnic groups also suffered, along with communists, people with disabilities, and homosexual people. As I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, Holocaust Memorial Day occurs annually on the 27th of January, in which everyone honours and remembers all of the victims and all of the lives lost. So that's why it's very fitting that we are learning about this poem this week. So this is the poem by Martin Niemöller, First They Came for the Jews. Okay, so it's a very short poem. This one screenshot is all the length of the poem. It's not a very long poem at all, but that doesn't mean that it's not powerful and that it doesn't have a very, very important message, okay? First they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out, because I was not a Jew. Then they came for the communists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a communist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. Okay, gorgeous. So that's all the length of the poem. As I said, it is a very, very short poem. However, I believe that the message it portrays is extremely powerful. Okay, so it goes through step by step. They, who are they? They, that is the Nazis, okay? So Hitler's forces in Germany, they came first for the Jews, then for the communists, then for the trade unionists. So it's working its way through all of the people, all of the humans that the Nazis conquered, okay, and all of the lives they took. And then finally they came for Martin Niemöller, and there was no one left to speak out for me. Because of the horrific numbers of people that the Nazis killed, there was no one left, okay? So this poem conveys the sheer loss of life that occurred during the Holocaust. So what I want you to do, we're going to move on to our writing tasks today. If you want to reread the poem, have a pause here at the video, or else go back to the PowerPoint that I always put up as well. You'll be able to look through the PowerPoint without the voiceover. We're going to have 3 writing tasks to do today, Carja, but they're not that long, okay? So task 1 is comprehension style questions. For number 1 and number 1 only, you need to use the point, evidence, explain, expand structure. So, number 1, provide an example of a poetic technique that the poet uses and explain how it is effective in helping the poet get his message across. So your point, evidence, explain, expand, and I have given you a breakdown of point, evidence, explain, expand here. Point, write the main idea. Evidence, well, this picture here says provide facts, figures, or examples, but you know it's going to be a quote directly from the poem. Tell me why you make this point. So what evidence, like the evidence you've gathered, explain that to me. How does this help you back up your point? And for your expand, I want everyone to give me your opinion. I want everybody to try point, evidence, explain today, even if you haven't been doing them previously, okay? We're going to be building on that 4-step answer. I want you to lay out your question, point, evidence, explain, expand, and take a brand new line, Gomaleshkal, for every section of the answer. That way you will be able to identify if you're missing a specific part. Number 2, in your opinion, who do you think they are and why? Okay, so I alluded to this whenever we were reading the poem. So go back and reread the poem and have an idea of who you think it is and tell me why. That second part of the question is very important. Don't just say, I think they are, and tell me. I want you to tell me why you think this. And number 3, why do you think the poet chose to write this poem? So whenever he was released from the concentration camps, whenever he was back out again, why did he choose to write this poem? Why didn't he just go back to his life, okay? Why did he want to write this poem? Why did he want to produce this material for the whole world to see, okay? Moving on to task 2. New words. The poem introduced some new words. What I want you to do now is to research a definition for these words. If you do not have a dictionary in your house, use this link here. You'll be able to click on it straight from the PowerPoint, okay? So there's 4 words. They're quite similar. Communism, communist, trade union, and trade unionist. We met these words in the poem, and some of you might not know what they mean. That's perfectly fine. That's what we're going to do throughout the poetry project. We're going to be learning new words. I want you to write a definition for every single word, okay? Then let's look on. These words below were not in the poem. However, they're very important whenever we're talking about this certain Holocaust era of history, okay? Propaganda, anti-Semitism, and persecution. Okay, now I'd say once you look up the definitions of these, you'll know the Logan Gaelic of these words from your Rangan Asthara, but it's good to have these words in English as well, okay? Especially whenever we're learning about poems, about specific historical eras. So that means by the end of task 2, you will have 7 definitions written on your page. Okay, I don't want them just copied and pasted from the dictionary. Remember whenever we did the first dictionary task at the start of the poetry project? I want you to write the definition in your own words to clearly show me that you understand it, okay? No point in just copying and pasting it from the dictionary, because then you might not have learnt anything. Write it in your own words. If I didn't know what this word meant, how would you describe it to me? Okay, my shiv. And then task 3. Analysing images in the context of equality. We will now view 3 historical images that relate to the theme of the Holocaust of which the poem writes. You should describe them, writing a paragraph for each image, focusing on how they relate to the theme of equality. So everything we do in the poetry project is relating back to the theme of equality. Okay, and as I say, the next slide, 3 images, you're going to write a paragraph for each, telling me how this shows equality, Perhaps it doesn't show equality, perhaps it demonstrates inequality. Tell me then how it shows inequality. Image 1 is an anti Semitic poster from the 1930s that was widely distributed in Germany by the Nazi Party. Okay, so let's get up image 1. So, what you will do for this image is you will be able to tell me how this image either demonstrates equality or inequality, okay? So have a look at it, read into the image. Obviously, there's 2 words on the poster, but they're in German. But we don't want to be reading the words. We're now learning how images speak to us, okay? So, what does anti-Semitic mean? It means people who are prejudiced and discriminatory specifically towards Jews, okay? So this was the Nazis during World War II. So does image 1 show equality or inequality? And I want you to write me a paragraph describing what you see in the picture. Image 2 portrays Nazi soldiers harassing Jewish people on the streets of Berlin in 1937. So let's look at image 2. We can see there's people, innocent people, perhaps were just out doing their shopping or whatever, walking down the street, and these Nazi soldiers are harassing them, okay? Image 3 depicts Jewish men imprisoned in a concentration camp in Poland in the early 1940s. And if we look, we see them all crowded together, there's barbed wire, they're all wearing the same uniform, so perhaps their sense of unity has been stripped. Okay, Georgia, I'm not going to give you too much information on images 1 to 3. I want you to simply write a small paragraph for each, so you'll have 3 paragraphs by the end. Does this picture represent equality or inequality? And tell me what you see. What does the picture tell you? Put the picture into words, okay? As always, Akarja, I'll be on Google Classroom for the duration of the lesson. If you have any questions at all, just write a private comment to me, my galore. Slán.